So in today's class, we are doing the Iro and Buba drafting and also sewing, but we're going to deal with the drafts to begin. To cut that, we need the bust measurements, we need the length measurements, and the sleeve width. So to get the bust measurements, we're going to use our mannequin today for measuring purposes, and we're going to measure the bust. To measure the bust, you need to measure the widest part of the bust, or your boobs or chest, if you may. So for this one, we are getting 36 inches for the bust. And then we're going to go ahead and measure the length, which is going to be from the highest shoulder point to where you really want it to be. So pay attention to when you're measuring. Remember to go over the bust and then to where your desired length will be, because this is how the booba is going to fall on your body. And we have 25 as the length measurements for this. So that's a plus or minus depending on how long you want it to be. For the sleeve width, the standard is 13, mostly 13. That's around the bicep. But we want to make the whole thing loose. So we're going to add 8 inches, a random number that I figured, 8 inches to the bust, and that will make it 44 inches. We're also, for the bust, that's 44. It's going to be a block measurements going all the way down. So for the waist and where it ends is also going to be 44 inches. That will make it loose. For the length, that's 25 as we found, and it's plus or minus whatever you want. The sleeve width is 13, so I'm going to add the random 8 inches to make it loose enough. That will give us 21. But in this case, you can make it not tight as 13 inches, but then you could go more than 21 or less than 21 if you may. Half of 21, because this is on a fold, is 10.5. So right now I'm dividing it in half at the center front to show what measurements we are doing for the neckline opening. So after we have that established, we're going to fold the fabric. I'm going to draw it how you would fold the fabric in a double fold, so that you cut on the time you're going to use to cut it. So if this is already folded, so you need the top part to be folded and the side to also be folded. Those signs are for folds, so your fabric needs to be folded halfway on where I've put the signs. I hope you understand that part. So on this side, most preferably, it's going to be where the fabric length is. That's where like the selvage is. And on the other side where I'm writing, that's going to be where the fabric width is usually. So you're going to go in 11 inches, and 11 inches is a quarter of the 44 inches. So you're going to make your mark where 11 inches is, and also you're going to mark at the top, somewhere at the top, 11 inches, so you can join the line. You're going to measure your sleeve width, which we found was 10.5. You're going to make that line, and then you're going to go and join it with a lengthwise line. So you have your T there. That's the red line I just drew. That's where you're going to cut. So basically that's what it will look like when it's cut. So now what's left to cut is the neckline. And for the style that we are doing, we are going 4 inches out and 4 inches down, and you're going to draw a circle, and then you're going to cut on that circle, and then you will end up with a neckline. Done. The draft is done. So what we just drafted is the booba. So now we're gonna rest that and talk about the booba. So basically what you need for the Iro is a rectangle, really, just to wrap around your waist. So the length is what you desire. You can go with the full width of the fabric and fold it at the top, or you can actually cut it off to get your exact length, whichever one you desire. And the width of it, like what's going around your waist, is about two and a half meters, and that's 88 inches. But you can have your fabric and try it out and see. This varies from size to size, but a good standard for a medium size person, two and a half yards, sorry, I said meters, 2.5 yards is enough for that. So that's all you need to draft the Iro, and you don't really need to do much. When you cut it, you will just do a little finishes. So what we're doing, we are preparing the fabric to make it ready to cut. So as you can see, I have folded the lengthwise, no, the widthwise. So I'm going to fold a little bit, halfway the width, and then double fold the other way. So this is what we call the double fold. So once you've double folded the fabric, you need to align it and make sure it's laying flat. There's no folds on the fabric, so you can make it ready to cut. So remeasure your fold to make sure it's 25, and 25 is the length of your garment from shoulder to where you want it to end, and then pin it up. We're pinning it up in some intervals to keep it in place so that it doesn't shift when we are cutting. So we make sure no layer is shifting at all. So after you have pinned up, now we're going to start marking, and we're starting with the neckline marking. Remember, it's 4 inches down, 4 inches on the side, so it's like a circle. So you have to make sure that where you're marking the neckline is where there's no fabric opening at all. They're both folded. So if you take out the cut out, it's actually going to be a circle. So you're going to mark throughout the 4 inches throughout, as you can see I'm doing. And then I'm going to pin it down so that when I cut it, it doesn't move. Pin close to where I marked. After that, we're going to start marking the body, and at this time I'm measuring the 11 inches. That's from the center front to the side seam. That's 11 inches. I'm going to make 2 markings, and then I'm going to join the lines. And at this time I'm marking the sleeve opening, which we found to be 10.5 inches. So I'm going to draw a straight line from where the 11 inches are, to close to where the 10.5 is, and then I'm still marking the 10.5 to establish where the sleeve we're cutting it. So now I'm joining the 11.5 line that I made and the 10.5 marking to get my T. And again, I'm pinning so that when I cut it, it doesn't the fabric doesn't shift. I just don't like fabric shifting on me. And now we're gonna, cut our fabric. So I'm starting to cut from the bottom, which is the hem, and then cut up and out. So for the well, I started cutting with the neckline. So now I'm gonna cut the hem. Make sure you're not no fabric is folded under, and you're not cutting fabric that you're not supposed to. So I'm cutting the hem, and then I'll go up the side seam to the arm. When I get here, I realized that I did not measure how long I want my sleeve to be, so I'm going to show you how to go about it. First, you need to measure your shoulder to shoulder so that you know where the sleeve is starting to, so you can get the exact sleeve measurement that you want. So from the shoulder bone to the other shoulder bone, the amount you get from that, so we're going to transfer it to the fabric, but because we double folded, so we only need a quarter of the body, and we only measured the front, so that is half. So we need a quarter of the measurements that you got from collarbone to collarbone. And I put the circle that I cut back so that I can get the exact start measuring from the corner to that point. So I make that marking for where the shoulder is, and then I go back, and now I'm going to measure how long I want my sleeve to be. So from the collarbone, the shoulder bone, sorry, I'm going to see where I want my length to be, and I'm going to go in and measure from where I marked the shoulder to where now the sleeve is. Remember to add some seam allowance, preferably about an inch seam allowance. When you sew it, you're going to double fold it, or you can choose to have a bigger hem there. So remember to consider the seam allowance. So now I'm going to mark my other marking for the sleeve, and then I'm going to join those lines to have a straight line down. And it's going to join with the 10.5 line that I made, and then I'm going to cut it out. For the long sleeve, you don't have to measure this at all. You can just use the exact measurement, like use the whole fabric, like how I was cutting straight. Don't don't measure where the sleeve is going to be. Just use all the extra fabric. Just cut straight and use all the extra fabric. So now we basically have our, our booba. So I'm going to fold it up nicely so that it doesn't fray, and wait to get sewn. Back to the remaining fabric. So I'm going to start from the other corner where I didn't cut the booba from, so because I'm trying to get the straight line from the other corner, and I'm going to measure my 2.5 yards, and that will be for the Iro. I'm going to make that snip there, and oh my goodness, the satisfaction of ripping fabric. If you haven't tried this, you should try this. I could actually just buy fabric just to rip it up, but well, I'm not gonna do that. Just to say that I enjoy ripping fabric. So we have our Iro, it's 2.5 inches. I'm not going to cut any desirable length. I'm going to use the length that is available, which is the width of the fabric, and I will just, work with it. If I needed it to be shorter, I will just fold the top. This is my very first time tying the Iro, like the twist type of tie, and I'm having a time of my life. I'm feeling very satisfied right now. So basically that's what we will have for our Iro. I must say I like it. It's looking pretty. Sorry, I'm out of focus. So basically that's what it is. So I'm now gonna fold it and put it away, ready for, the sewing process. So when I'm done, I like to fold up the remaining fabric so that when I need it next, I want it not wrinkly, and I want it, just as good as when I bought it. So I'm gonna fold this one up and store it away. So on this other fabric, I'm preparing a fabric to also cut the other one. I threw this video in just so if the other video I showed about folding, the double fold in preparation for cutting, if it's not clear, then I'm hoping that this will help. One thing I like to do is when I like a style, I don't cut one. Actually, I would go ahead and cut even like 3 or 4 of the same style and just make them. So in this with this black and white star fabric, I'm going to cut about the exact same Iro and Buba, but this one I'm going to put a wider neck and put the longer sleeves and put elastic. So if you want to see how I do that, be sure to watch the part 2 of this tutorial. I will post a link